When the neighborhood's art-loving rebel faces off against Karen, the HOA's ruthless enforcer, will creativity triumph over conformity? The morning sun peeked through my window as I heard a sharp rap on my door, breaking the stillness of the day. It was Karen, the self-appointed arbiter of taste in our neighborhood, her stormy expression mirroring the brewing conflict. "This lawn art is an eyesore," she spat, gesturing at my vibrant display of painted garden gnomes and whimsical wind chimes. With a mix of pride and defiance, I stood my ground, loving every piece of color against the drab conformity our HOA rules imposed upon us. I had lived in this neighborhood for 3 years, and in that time I had become increasingly frustrated by the rigid expectations set forth by the homeowners association. When I moved in, I had envisioned a place where creativity could flourish, a sanctuary where individuality was celebrated. Instead, I found myself in a battleground where imagination was stifled, and the only colors allowed were shades of beige or monochrome. Karen stood there, arms crossed and lips pulled into a sneer, her stature emphasizing her need to control everything within her iron grasp. She had taken it upon herself to patrol our community, clipboard in hand, to check that we all adhered to the bland template of suburbia. Today, she was my personal tyrant. "That gnome is criminally bright," she declared, pointing at my delightfully tacky knick-knack painted in neon pink. I chuckled softly, imagining the local artisans who would thrive in a world where people like her didn't dictate what beauty ought to be. I looked at my yard, a whimsical landscape filled with handcrafted charm and personality. My gnomes were not just decorations. They represented years of laughter, warm summer nights, and the love I poured into every brushstroke. Their cheeky grins contrasted starkly against the monotonous lawns of my neighbors, as if to shout, "We are here, and we refuse to blend in." I wanted to explain this to Karen, to express my love for the eclectic, to share how every swing of the paintbrush was a rebellion against mediocrity. "It's art, Karen. Have you ever thought about that?" I challenged her, my heart racing as the words spilled forth. I felt emboldened as I realized the truth in my passion. She arched an eyebrow, disbelief etched across her features. "Art belongs in galleries or museums, not on someone's front lawn," she replied, her tone dripping with disdain. There was a fire in her eyes that told me I was not just facing a woman with a narrow vision of beauty, but a furious dragon protecting her fortress of conformity. Suddenly, the thought struck me. If she wanted to criticize my lawn, then maybe I should transform it into a gallery. My own outdoor museum? The idea bubbled to the surface like the morning light dancing on the dew-kissed grass. Why not amplify my colorful expressions? I could showcase the best of quirky decorations, turning every corner into a celebration of creativity and joy. The thought filled me with an intoxicating rush of empowerment. "You know what, Karen?" I retorted, my voice unwavering despite the knot of nerves in my stomach. "You might think my lawn is an eyesore, but I'm going to turn it into a full-blown gallery. The neighborhood will witness a riot of colors, whimsy, and delightful things that you seem to loathe." I watched as her expression soured, mimicking the gray clouds rolling in on a stormy day. With grit igniting my spirit, I decided that if I had to fight this fight, I would do so with flair. The idea itself felt like an exhilarating challenge. As she stormed away, her heels clicking angrily against the sidewalk, I could feel the crest of excitement wash over me. I hurried inside, my mind racing with plans for my avant-garde outdoor gallery. I would add bright, yarn-bombed fences, wildflower beds bursting with color, even solar-powered art lighting to illuminate my whimsical creations come nightfall. I grabbed my sketchpad and began jotting down ideas of every impossible project. I envisioned every outrageous lawn ornament, every creative expression I could conjure up. Perhaps it was my way of pushing back against the rigid structure of suburbia, or maybe it was simply a desperate need to assert my independence in a place where control reigned supreme. Whatever the motivation, I felt alive, driven by a purpose to combat grayness with every hue imaginable. The moment I finished my sketches, the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows on my newly crumpled list of projects. I felt that undeniable thrill, the beautiful tension of anticipation wrapped in uncertainty, as the first waves of morning warmth slowly turned into the crisp bite of evening. Whatever Karen had planned next, she would soon discover that she had underestimated my resolve. I would turn my front yard into a vibrant testament of existence, a sanctuary where creativity could flourish, and finally show our neighborhood that there was more to artistry than the gray walls of expectation. The sun hung low in the sky, its golden hue casting shimmering rays upon my yard as I channeled my inner artist, determined to transform my front lawn into a vibrant gallery. I stood amongst my painted gnomes, visions of vivid sculptures swirling in my mind-breathtaking pieces that would elevate my outdoor space from a mere collection of lawn ornaments to a riot of color and creativity. Each day, I ventured out into my neighborhood armed with a list of local artisans, each unique piece meticulously chosen, embodying a testament to self-expression. As the weeks passed, my yard morphed into an eclectic fusion of art. Whimsical wooden sculptures twisted into fantastical forms, accompanied by a chorus of flowers spilling over from planters that seemed to reach out for attention. I felt an exhilarating rush each time I added a new piece, knowing full well that with each addition, Karen's scowl deepened. It was as if her bitterness infused my art with a more rebellious spirit, and for reasons unknown, that thrill empowered me. Every morning, as I watered my colorful exhibits and rearranged my gnomes into theatrical poses, I could hear Karen's complaints echoing through the neighborhood. Her voice, a sharp, discordant note in the otherwise harmonious symphony of chirping birds and rustling leaves, crept into houses and garages, rallying a small band of equally sour residents. She began dispatching her power-driven critiques to the homeowners association with fervor, each complaint more exaggerated than the last. I could picture her, arms crossed, glaring at my gallery through her beady, distrustful eyes, ready to pounce at any moment. But for every sneer she cast in my direction, I noticed more and more neighbors strolling past my lively display, their smiles broad and eyes alight with joy. They paused to bask in the playful absurdity of my creations, murmuring words of encouragement as they meandered through my yard-turned gallery, their laughter echoing in contrast to Karen's bitter demeanor. With each admiring glance, her grip on our community seemed more tenuous, the notion of conformity fraying along the edges. It was as if my yard had become a magnet for color, coaxing out the vibrant inner souls of my neighbors. Every time Karen's discontent drifted into the air, I felt a familiar pulse of excitement in my chest. I welcomed her ire, relishing each time she rang my doorbell to deliver her demands. "You cannot keep doing this! What about property values?" she would bark, her hands gripping her hips, her brows knitting together in frustration. I met her stony gaze with mine, unyielding as I admitted. But value can't simply be a dollar amount. It can be creativity, joy, and community too. It felt liberating to watch her wrench her lips into a disapproving line, in contrast to the playful cheer my creations inspired. As the days wore on, Karen escalated her efforts to garner support against me, posting pictures of my vibrant assortment in the community chat forum with scathing captions that accused me of polluting the aesthetic standards we were supposed to uphold. I soon found myself navigating the complexities of this artistic rebellion. I knew I had become more than just a whimsical homeowner. No, I was an artist standing my ground against the authoritarian nightmares of monotony. I even overheard fellow residents mentioning how they enjoyed my work as they sipped coffee during their morning strolls, exchanging compliments about the newfound spirit my yard had breathed into the neighborhood. One fateful evening, dusk settling in like a warm embrace, I witnessed her eyes smoldering in anger through her living room curtains as I added yet another colorful wooden flamingo, complete with a sparkling tiara. Suddenly, the laughter of children drifted through the warm air. A new neighbor's child named Lily shouted in glee at my installations, inspiring a sense of wonder so profound that I felt invigorated. I caught myself imagining the beauty of this fierce community, blooming vibrant against the drab rules Karen so staunchly enforced. It wasn't just about my yard. It was about freeing our collective spirit from the voracious grip of control. As summer slipped into fall, the colors of my gallery shimmered brightly, and I found myself anticipating what was coming next for my artistic rebellion. My neighbor's growing appreciation for my work had ignited a spark of passion in me that propelled me forward, and I couldn't help but wonder if Karen's hate fueled the creativity all the more. Perhaps, unbeknownst to her, every scornful glance and sharpened reprimand only made me more resolute, a true artist flourishing in resistance. I knew Karen would take notice soon enough, and I was ready for her next move. Would she dare confront me again, or would the tide of admiration ultimately reach her callous heart, urging her to see the beauty and joy? Only time would tell. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow across my yard as I paced nervously in front of my ever-growing collection of lawn art. Each vibrant piece whispered stories of creativity and joy, yet a storm brewed within the confines of our homeowners association, known for its rigid adherence to conformity. The meeting was scheduled for that evening, and tension crackled in the air as I prepared to defend what I believed to be a heartfelt expression of individuality amidst the suffocating blanket of monotony. I felt an exhilarating blend of excitement and dread coursing through me as I imagined the site's residents filling the community room, glares exchanged across tables, and Karen's piercing accusations filling the air. As I arrived at the meeting, anxiety bubbled beneath the surface, and I could see Karen already seated at the long table, her features sharpened by an abundance of bitterness. I could practically feel the weight of her disdain pressing down as she rallied her small band of supporters, their whispers coiling through the room like a thick fog. It was more than just a meeting. It was a battleground, each side fervently staked in the conflict of what my yard represented. As the HOA president called the meeting to order, I gripped the table, bracing myself for the confrontation that was about to unfold. The discussion quickly turned toward my property, and Karen wasted no time seizing the stage. "This lawn art is not only an eyesore, it actively detracts from the aesthetic harmony we expect here," she exclaimed, her voice dripping with righteous indignation. She proceeded to present a series of selective photos, capturing fleeting moments where the chaos of my gallery clashed with her vision of suburban perfection. It was disheartening to hear the twisted narratives she spun, painting me as a reckless property owner whose creativity threatened to ruin our community's essence. My heart raced, but deep down, I felt a simmer of defiance igniting. With her claims hanging in the air, I sensed the precarious balance of community support shifting, and I knew I had to respond. I rose from my chair, my palms slick with sweat, and addressed the room. "What's wrong with joy? What's wrong with self-expression?" I asked, my voice catching in my throat as I stared into the faces of my neighbors. I took a deep breath, pushing my insecurities into the background. My yard isn't just a canvas, it has become a source of happiness, not only for me but for those who stroll by and smile. I could see flickers of acknowledgement sparking in some eyes, though the specter of Karen loomed ominously nearby. The HOA president attempted to cool the mounting tension, as he suggested a voting process to determine the fate of my lawn art. We must consider whether it promotes the values we hold dear in this community, or if it has crossed the line into being a nuisance, he pronounced, silence falling like a heavy curtain across the room. I felt the walls closing in, realizing the stakes were higher than I had anticipated. A vote could mean not just a setback for my art, but a setback for everything I stood for. The idea of my vibrant expressions being labeled as a nuisance churned in my stomach like a stone. Emotionally raw, I watched as Karen subtly nudged other residents to join her crusade. I imagined her whispering insidious embellishments into their ears, portraying my lawn as a reckless adult playground encroaching on their sanctity. As fear crept into my heart, I realized people could easily sway toward her frustrations rather than appreciate the art that blossomed under my care. Yet as her tirades continued, I could hear murmurs of dissent rising, neighbors exchanging glances filled with uncertainty about the shackles of conformity we'd all acquiesced to for far too long. I recognized at that moment I needed a strategy, a way to both rally support and reclaim my artistic freedom. Inspiration struck like a bolt of lightning. I would host a neighborhood show-a-day when the community could interact with my yard in a way they hadn't before. I could transform our disagreement into an opportunity to showcase how my art brought us together, guiding residents to see the value of that shared joy. I imagined vibrant banners proclaiming, "Art in the Yard," scattered throughout the neighborhood, enticing visitors with promises of laughter and creativity. As the meeting adjourned, I hurried home with fresh determination, swirling thoughts igniting an excitement within me. I envisioned children displaying art projects alongside my sculptures, laughter spilling across the lawn while adults mingled amidst my color-bursting displays. Karen had meant to stifle my creativity, but with her relentless opposition, she had inadvertently fueled my resolve. It was her narrow perception that had rallied the creative spirit of spirit that I would refuse to dim, even in the face of adversity. With the clock ticking, and the show date fast approaching, I felt a blend of vulnerability and defiance. I would not just submit to the overbearing homeowners association, I would rise against it. I dove into planning every detail, hoping to turn what had become a bitter conflict into a compelling celebration of our diverse neighborhood spirit. The stakes had risen high, yet they only added to the fire of determination crackling within my chest as I prepared to stand tall in my art, hoping to win hearts as fiercely as I was fighting for my own. Just as my preparations for the show reached a crescendo, a crushing notice landed like an unexpected avalanche in my mailbox. My yard was being deemed a public hazard. The HOA had taken issue with my beloved oversized mushroom garden sculpture, a whimsical painted piece that stood proudly among the rest of my vibrant creations. It was a symbol of everything I wanted to celebrate: creativity, joy, and a defiance against the stifling norms of our community. But to Karen and her relentless comrades, it was nothing more than an unregistered structure, a sign of chaos infiltrating the suburban order they held so dear. An icy dread settled over me as I read the notice. I paced my living room, the walls closing in as I felt a wave of helplessness wash over me. How could a harmless piece of art be labeled a public hazard? Hadn't my yard been a source of joy for many? A brief escape from the drab uniformity of our neighborhood? I had expected criticism from the HOA, but this felt like a deliberate attempt to crush my spirit. My mind whirled with confusion and doubt. Should I tone down my art and play safe? Or was it time to push back against Karen and her oppressive standards? An overwhelming bitterness churned inside me as I mulled over the possible repercussions of my decision. In the days leading up to the show, I thought about the fence of criticism that Karen had built, her vicious tongue wrapped around the tightly wound tapestry of our community's expectations. Would it come crashing down if I stood my ground? I imagined the flickering hope I had managed to find through my art. The faces of my supportive neighbors flashed through my mind, reflecting the joy my creations had inspired. Could I betray them by shrinking into the shadows of conformity, or did I owe it to myself and them to boldly defend what we had created together? I could envision Karen already basking in her victory, her features twisted with a satisfaction that grated against all that I stood for. She and her followers thrived on order, on the idea that their way was the only way. As I fought against doubt creeping into my mind, I thought about the reasons I had begun this ambitious venture in the first place. I wanted to paint happiness onto the canvas of suburbia. I wanted to transform dreary lives into something colorful and vibrant, something that made us all stop and reflect. Yet, the tight noose of the HOA hung heavy around my neck, and I could feel that same consciousness of fear threatening to pull me into submission. Determined not to yield, I grabbed my phone and began drafting a response to the HOA, pouring my protest into each carefully chosen word. Every sentence became a desperate declaration of my individuality and the value that came with self-expression. I argued for the myriad of emotions my artwork evoked, the conversations it sparked, and the connections it forged among our once aloof neighbors. Maybe, just maybe, the tide could turn. Perhaps my art could stand as a beacon, illuminating the way for others to embrace their creativity. I inhaled sharply, my heart racing as each word I typed felt more like a call to arms than a mere defense. But there was still fear lingering in my chest, heavy like a stone. I had been invigorated by the fleeting support of my neighbors in the previous meeting, but would they rally around me again when confronted with the looming threat of Karen's accusations? I imagined the upcoming vote looming over my life like a ticking clock, each second intensifying the pressure for me to conform. Would I risk it all by pushing back, or would I find myself on the wrong side of judgment, a casualty in the battle for my yard? It was the relentless grip of conformity I was fighting against, a spectral flurry of opinions framing my work as frivolous and irresponsible. As dusk fell over my yard, I stared at the mushroom sculpture, bathed in the golden hue of the twilight sun. I tried to envision it as my musemy-resistant spirit that refused to be stifled. If there was ever an emblem of defiance, surely it was this quirky handful of color rising against bureaucracy, a gentle reminder that there was beauty in eccentricity, humor in rebellion. A swelling tide of potential surged within me as I wrestled with my plans for the neighborhood show. Maybe I could turn this notice into an opportunity, combining the awareness of my current plight with the unveiling of my artwork. I imagined the buzz of excitement in the air as my neighbors gathered around, soaking in the colors and stories I wanted to share. Perhaps by showcasing my art, I could demonstrate the sense of community it inspired and foster unity rather than division among us. Maybe the day could awaken dormant imaginations, leaving them craving more than mere conformity could fulfill. In this moment, as I stood before my beloved art, I could hear its silent promise to fight for freedom, to stand firm against tyranny, and to celebrate what made us unique. With renewed determination, I decided to take the plunge by forging ahead with the show, exactly as I had envisioned it. Let the other residents come to me. Let them stir in their chairs and wonder how it came to be that a quirky mushroom could cause such calamity. I would turn my yard into a gallery, a protest against Karen's bitter reign, and a place where everyone could discover the power of art to unite us all. The stakes were high, but then again, when had I ever allowed fear to dictate my choices? In my heart, I knew a fight was brewing. It wasn't just about my yard anymore. It was about our collective spirit, and I would not go down without a vibrant fight. The day of the show dawned under a bright blue sky, the sun casting a warm glow over my yard, now transformed into a vibrant open-air gallery. As I looked out, I could hardly believe my eyes. Neighbors were steadily lining up, buzzing with excitement. Their faces reflected the kaleidoscope of colors in my sculptures, each piece a celebration of joy and creativity. My heart swelled with pride, but amidst the thrumming anticipation there stood Karen. Sullen and rigid, she glowered from the sidelines like a storm cloud, ready to rain on my parade. Just when it seemed like her bitterness might ripple through the air, a local news crew arrived, their cameras capturing the spirit of the moment with an excited flurry. I could hardly contain my delight as the reporters approached, clearly intrigued by the scene before them. My neighbors welcomed them, spinning tales of laughter, imagination, and rejuvenation brought about by my artwork, their words bursting forth with uncontainable enthusiasm. I exhaled, feeling that every brushstroke I'd laid on my creations mattered, weaving a tapestry of color and connection in this community. As the reporters began filming, Karen's eyes narrowed, and I swear I could see the very strands of her tightly woven power beginning to unravel. The more the neighbors spoke about the ways my art had brought fresh air, innovation, and togetherness into their previously mundane lives, the more invisible Karen became. I saw her shift uncomfortably, her position faltering as the embrace of creativity overpowered the grip of conformity she had held for so long. Oh, how delicious it was to witness that moment of societal healing taking shape. I stepped forward, seizing this unexpected opportunity to join the parade of voices praising the artistry and expression that flourished across my yard. With a smile stretching broadly across my face, I thanked my neighbors for their unwavering support. This isn't just my artwork, I pointed out, intoxicated by the moment. It's our art, a reflection of each one of us, breaking free from the chains of normalcy. The energy surged even higher as claps and cheers erupted from the crowd, electrified by our collective spirit of liberation. As I looked around, I realized that this moment was more than just a show. It was a celebration of individuality. It was a testament to the fact that our community had a heart, a vibrant soul that longed to be expressed, and I had merely stoked the fires of that long-simmering desire. I caught Karen's gaze, her features twisted with incredulity as she witnessed the very thing she had feared rise like a phoenix from the ashes of her oppression. Did she see? Did she finally grasp that art could unify instead of divide? Then, amid the festivities, I noticed a group of children giggling and bounding excitedly from one sculpture to another, their faces alight with wonder. An old neighbor, once reserved and quiet, leaned close to me with a warm smile as I dampened my artistic justice speech. "You've breathed life into this neighborhood," she murmured, glancing back at the children and then at the others chatting animatedly about the art. "We've needed this." I couldn't help but agree, recognizing that my once bold vision had become a shared reverie. In that magical moment, I felt a collective defiance grow, branching out towards the edges of our grass-like vibrations. Karen's grip on our community felt looser with every passing minute, and finally, as the proceedings carried on, she faded into the background, the isolation of her bitterness wrapping her like a shroud. Perhaps now she could see how her relentless pursuit of order had contributed to so much discontent among our neighbors, and how a little joy could go a long way. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, painting the clouds in hues of orange and violet, I stood tall, emboldened by the resolution unfolding around me. An HOA representative approached, and I sensed a profound shift in the atmosphere. They took notes, nodded occasionally, and I could see they were considering the necessity of reevaluating what it truly meant to be in community. Perhaps they too felt the weight of Karen's once mighty influence, now drifting away like smoke in the dusk. Finally liberated from the tyranny of Karen's stringent control, I declared to everyone present, "This art, this sense of community, it's here to stay. This is our gallery, and together we'll cultivate its beauty as we embrace all the creativity each of us has to offer." My declaration echoed around us, met only by cheers and applause, filling my heart with hope. The air was alive with possibility as I closed my eyes, breathing in not just relief, but the sweet scent of newfound harmony.